Hello there everyone, Common Wolfram here, together with Rogersbase, ready to go over the lineup, or the many games if you prefer, that are coming out in the big year of 2023. Some games have been delayed, some other games have been announced along those delays. So Roger, we're starting out very strong actually in January with both ports and brand new games, in fact.
Yeah, we got Persona 3 and 4 coming on January 19th, and then Fire Emblem Engage on January 20th. You already know I will be streaming Fire Emblem, no doubt. And we actually just got confirmation last night at the Game Awards that we're going to be getting DLC for that as well, up to 4 waves of DLC, which is pretty surprising. And that first wave is going to have 3 Houses characters on it and Tiki as well, so that should be fun. It was kind of a little jarring, but now I actually really do like the fluidity of the animation, and the saturation of the colors as well too, I think is really cool. So yeah, like I said, I can't wait.
This is a classic example of a very short marketing cycle, but a very focused one. One where literally we had the first trailer in September, and then it's just been trailer upon trailer upon trailer, which we haven't seen that much for a certain other game, which we are soon going to get to, and also which missed the Game Awards, obviously, Zelda. But we're doing all the games in release order, and in February we actually have 3 more games, and in fact 2 of them are brand new, while the final one is a deluxe version of a, well, really good Kirby game. So let's begin with Blanc, the indie entry. It looks very nice.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things from the previous Indie Directs, I think. The visual style is really pretty.
And then you have, of course, Octopath Traveler 2, which I have to be honest and say, I'm not sure about the release window for that game. I think it could have benefited from waiting until the summer, probably.
I am in complete agreement with you. I feel like coming out so close to Fire Emblem, I think, is a mistake. It's the kind of thing that I know I'm going to play. I'm a huge fan of the 2D HD games, and we've seen in the past that they kind of like to launch these Bravely-esque games in that February timeframe, so it's not a huge surprise to see it there.
Sadly for them, on the same day we have Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, so yeah, timing-wise, I just don't know how they're not able to find a better division of these releases, especially since Octopath Traveler 2 is very much tied to the Switch.
I do wonder though, like, is the target audience for Octopath the same as Kirby? Because I don't necessarily think so. Like, obviously, Nintendo fans are going to get both, right? If you're just like a hardcore Nintendo fan, you're going to want to get both. But I feel like for me, if I had to choose one, I would choose Octopath, right? Kirby is just a re-release of a game that was, while being a quite good Kirby game, is still a re-release at the end of the day. And I know there are some other re-releases that have been rumored but haven't been announced, but I think are all but confirmed, that we'll talk about a little bit later, that they could slot it literally any time. I mean, I'm looking at some of these upcoming months, and I think alongside some other major releases, we might be seeing some of those re-releases slotted in to sort of fill out that early year, because I think the second half of the year next year is going to be filled with a lot of things we can't even begin to have an idea of what those games are going to be until like E3 time.
March also has become quite interesting. We already knew about Fatal Frame Mask of Lunar Eclipse, which is, I guess, coming out on your birthday.
My 33rd birthday. Yep.
Wow.
I'm old, man.
33rd in 2023.
That's right.
Wow. So I don't have much more else to say to that. It's Fatal Frame. But 8 days later, we have Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon, which was literally announced at the Game Awards. And it's a Bayonetta game, a prequel Bayonetta game, which actually we might be able to play, even despite all the sensory overload issues we've had.
I know, I've told you, for whatever reason, those action games like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, the camera moves around so quickly in those games that it always kind of overwhelms me and makes me feel a little sick. So yeah, the new perspective and the art style, I think, as well, really help with this Origins game, so I'd definitely be willing to give it a shot.
In March, we also have Fitness Boxing Fist of the North.
I just think it's funny they're doing a Fist of the North Star game. It matches for fitness boxing, and I would certainly rather play this than baseline fitness boxing, but it just was like an announcement that came out of nowhere. So I am curious how that game is going to end up selling in Japan.
But since we're on the subject of games, Hollow Knight Silksong.
Yes.
We know that it's coming out in spring 2023 because of the Xbox showcase saying that all of these games are coming out within the next 12 months. Well, that presentation took place in the first half of June, which means that we should expect Hollow Knight Silksong by the first half of June. Still, we have heard very little about this game when it comes to its presence on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I loved the original Hollow Knight. I played it during COVID, actually. It was like one of my quarantine games, and I fell in love with it. Again, like I'm a huge fan of Metroidvanias, and I've been waiting for more information on Silksong. My concern is that this drops in May alongside Tears of the Kingdom, because then there's no way that I'm going to get to it until another year from now, because I'll be spending so much time playing Breath of the Wild too.
If we were to pinpoint a month that this game should launch, it should be April, because it's empty because of the Mario movie, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a discussion for, I think, a little bit later in this discussion, because I think there's a lot of games that could slot into that April time slot. Both games that are already announced that don't have release dates, and then also games that we kind of already know are in development. It's just a matter until they announce them, and I think they could potentially slot.
So before we get there, then I guess let's talk about The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Of course,
May 12th.
I mean, this is the last game with a solid release date that we know of in 2023 right now. You know, May 12th. Both of us are going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom, streaming Tears of the Kingdom, you know, obsessing over that game. And I can't wait. I mean, I feel like we're going to get a pretty solid direct within the next month or 2 months that's going to have a lot of information about not just like the mechanics of the game, but also maybe it'll give us a better idea of the story. But I also kind of don't want to know too much going into it. I feel like the less I know, the better. Whereas you're in a situation where you're analyzing every little frame of animation. So I feel like you know much better than I what the plan for this game's going to end up being.
Well, like, my main concern when it comes to this game is just the lack of any sort of marketing.
Yes.
For a game coming out in less than 5 months, as of the upload of this video, there's no way to justify only having 3 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
And when most of it is just, it's the still image or a little bit of lore sequence.
Yeah.
And still frames. Let's be honest, we haven't seen nothing of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
No.
We have seen no gameplay whatsoever, no HUD, no controller-based action. Just 5-second clips from different scenarios and situations that aren't that much different from Breath of the Wild, outside, of course, of having sky-based gameplay and seamless transition between the layers. That being the sky, the existing open world, or open air as Nintendo likes to market it, and even the underground possibly. I think the marketing of this game should really get full steam after the new year, most likely with the first Direct in February. And I think it might have something to do with a hardware question, which is actually our next point.
Yeah. On the topic of, are we going to get, Switch Pro launching alongside this? Because Nintendo, they do this all the time. They go, we have no plans for systems within this fiscal year. System announcements in the fiscal year. Then the fiscal year ends, and then like a month later, they announce something. This happened with DSi. This happened with one of the 3DS iterations. Pretty sure this happened with Nintendo Switch Lite too, right? So I feel like this is not a huge surprise or a huge jump, right? A leap in logic to say that I think once the fiscal year ends, we will probably get some type of announcement of some new Switch hardware. Now, I think we've already discussed this on previous videos that I'm sure you will be more than happy to link up with little cards in this video right here. But we've discussed at great length the idea that the Switch probably still has quite a bit of life in it, right? There are still quite a few games that are being developed cross-gen. Like yesterday, From Software announced the new Armored Core game that everyone was all excited about. That game is also coming out on PS4. The game comes out in 2023 and is also releasing on PS4. So I feel like so long as that is happening, there really isn't a timer on the Switch, right? Like Nintendo could go as long as they want from making a new iteration if other people are still making games on the previous systems, Once things really start to move and development starts to shift entirely to the new gen systems, to the PS5, to the Series X, that's when I think we're really going to start seeing the momentum and the push towards the end of the Switch's life cycle. But again, still not happening anytime soon. And we are waiting on that fourth refresh, right? We had the 3DS, we had the 3DS Lite, we had the 3DS XL, and we had the new Nintendo 3DS. Same situation here, I think. I think we're going to end up having, we had the Switch Lite, we had the base Switch, we had the OLED, which was essentially the XL, and the quote-unquote new Nintendo Switch, or the Switch I or whatever, that version of it, Switch Pro, whatever you want to call it. I think that'll get announced in April, and I think it's going to launch alongside Tears of the Kingdom.
quite agree with you. And the reason we're seeing so little of Tears of the Kingdom, I think, is they don't want to ruin their holiday sales by giving any hints or teases to new hardware. Because I think next time we see Tears of the Kingdom, it's going to look even better than it has done up to this point. And when we see gameplay, it will be on that new model or hardware, whatever it ends up being.
And realistically, if you look at the time frame, I think they could drop a really meaty, like, Tears of the Kingdom trailer in a late January, early February next year direct, right? They could have like a good chunk of that direct just be Zelda, but still also give us updates on a bunch of other games, right? Maybe show us some more DLC for things, remind us about some other stuff coming out, but then tell us during that there's going to be a separate Zelda direct. Or we just know right away there's going to be another Zelda Direct, because of course they're going to do one, because they've been doing a lot of these standalone ones. They did one for Xenoblade, they did one for Splatoon. Of course they're going to do it for Zelda. And my guess is that Zelda one will be in April. We're going to get solid final information on Tears of the Kingdom, probably see it running on the new Nintendo Switch hardware, if there is new Nintendo Switch hardware. And I also think, and this goes along with other games that we kind of know are in development, but we just haven't heard anything from, I also think they might shadow drop Wind Waker or Twilight Princess as well in April to sort of tide people over for the month.
I actually think they're going to wait with Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD until maybe even 2024, because I think Tears of the Kingdom is such a big release that they can just let those games slip out of this next fiscal year. Even.
I mean, you might be right then. I was thinking they might drop it as part of like a big celebration Zelda Direct thing. But if you think they'll hold it off till later in the year, I guess that would make more sense because they don't want to cannibalize their sales.
Yeah, and they might do it later this year, but they might also just wait until 2024 to have the Zelda feel that year. Because I don't expect a new top-down Zelda, any sort of Zelda spin-off in 2024. I would expect something like that in 2025, and then probably on a new system as well, since it's going to be a while until we get a new Zelda game after Tears of the Kingdom. Oh,
for sure. And I'm sure Tears of the Kingdom is going to have DLC as well, just like Breath of the Wild.
And that's why I think that's going to be the focus of 2023, is to have the first DLC pack at least out, and a big DLC pack out by the end of 2023, and then bring the next one, say along the time of the Game Awards, because, well, Zelda skipped completely the Game Awards before the release this time. It wasn't present at E3 at all. It's a very weird marketing build-up.
It is.
For a game of this scale, ambition, and importance. Like, this is probably the most important Nintendo sequel of all time.
And it also is kind of weird, too, when you think about how early we got the announcement of this one. I think, they always announce Zelda games too early. This is just how Nintendo is, right? They always will announce them years in advance. They get delayed multiple times. But this one in particular was weird because when it got announced, it didn't have a title. But they called it the next game in the Breath of the Wild, franchise, essentially, which is weird because even when they announced Twilight Princess for the first time, we didn't get the subtitle. It was just called The Legend of Zelda. And it was kind of the same thing when we got that first image of Fi and Link during that developer roundtable for Skyward Sword as well. They just called it The Legend of Zelda. So we're in sort of uncharted territory in which it's a direct sequel to another Zelda game, but was called that from the initial release. And then in addition to all of that as well, this was announced BC, right? Before COVID. So time is already kind of wonky with COVID and how long we were in quarantine. But then in addition to that, we had that full year of buildup thinking, a lot of us thought that game, we would see more of it by the end of 2020. And that didn't end up being the case. And now here we are going into 2023, finally with the release date, but wondering what the heck is going on with it. So yeah, it definitely is an unprecedented release schedule, even for a series that's notorious for having weird delays.
We had seen more of Splatoon, Xenoblade, and I think every possible Nintendo franchise that we have seen of Zelda when we are less than...
There's literally been a full new Xenoblade game that got released since the announcement of Breath of the Wild 2. Announced and released. Not just released, but announced and released.
We might be 4 months away, maybe even 3 months away from the release of the game before we see this game again, which is just mind-blowing.
You know what else doesn't make much sense, Conrad?
I don't know.
Advance Wars not getting released yet. What's going on with Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp? Where is that game?
It's Ukraine, Russia, and they're probably just waiting for the conflict to end, but this is not going to end anytime soon. So they better just release it.
Just shadow drop it.
Delaying it any further is just going to make it completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's pretty much irrelevant at this point anyway. So yeah, get it out. That's all I have to say. I know there's a lot of other games coming out, including games that have just been announced, like Hades 2. I'm not sure if that game is going to come out anytime soon, though. Most likely it's like end of 2023, maybe even 2024. But it looks like the original Hades was amazing.
Yeah, and this developer is known for not doing sequels too. They did Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, obviously Hades, naturally, but I think there's one more I'm forgetting that was amidst their catalog of stuff. But they've never done a direct sequel, is basically my point. And so this being a direct sequel to arguably their most successful franchise that is also coming to Switch, I think is really neat. I think I agree with you.
Like, we have no release windows for any games beyond this point. Even when it comes to Nintendo's own games, like Pikmin 4 was revealed at the previous Nintendo Direct in September. We just got a brief teaser there, and just 2023. And yeah, I think we're gonna see far more of that game. Maybe not in the first Direct, because usually games revealed in the previous Direct skip the next Direct.
I think this is where we differ. I think this is our new Xenoblade bet, my friend. I think Pikmin comes out first half of the year. I think it comes out prior to E3 next year. I think at the latest, I could see this game releasing E3 week, similar to a couple other things that have happened in the past, where they've had a game come out like the week before, and then they've had the demo station still at E3, but it actually had already been released. I could see this happening for Pikmin, mostly because I think holiday next year is already kind of stacked when you think about it. Metroid Prime 4 is their game next holiday. I feel like I have no doubt in my mind that is going to be their big hardcore release for the holiday season next year. In addition to, DLC for a bunch of stuff that we already know about. We'll have by that time more DLC for Mario Kart, more DLC for Fire Emblem, probably DLC announced and potentially maybe even released for Tears of the Kingdom by then. We'll have, just tons of DLC across the board. And I think they'll need a tentpole hardcore game to satiate that holiday season, and I think Metroid is probably going to be that game. Metroid Prime 4 specifically. I think we're going to get the Metroid Prime remake or whatever it's called way before that. And the other thing I think is going to be releasing next holiday season, and a big reason why I don't think there's going to be many other releases around that time, certainly not a Pikmin game, is I think next year is going to have a Mario game. I really do. I think they're going to take that momentum from the Mario movie, and I think that game is going to release holiday season next year, whether that is a Mario Odyssey 2, whether that is a Mario Galaxy 3, or whatever they want to do. Even if it's like a new 2D Mario game. It could be anything. But I think a Mario game or a platformer in that realm, maybe even like a new Donkey Kong or something, I think that's going to be their big holiday release for everybody. So Metroid satiates the hardcore, Mario, Donkey Kong satiates the families.
Nintendo is going to space out those releases pretty darn well. I'm not sure about Metroid Prime 4 releasing next year, because I think that it's either that or the Mario game. So it also depends on how much the life there is left in Nintendo Switch.
Which is the other reason why I think it's got to be next year, right? Because moving into 2024, I imagine by the end of 2024, we will have heard Switch 2's announcement. Like it would get announced maybe at the end of 2024 before the Game Awards or something around that time, like late 2024. And if that's the case, I don't see them releasing Metroid during that same year. And I think both of us also agree that when the Switch successor comes out, probably in like 2025, that's most likely going to launch with Mario Kart. So we know there's not going to be any other Mario Kart stuff beyond the DLC they've already committed to for Mario Kart 8. And there's other Mario things they're going to need to do if they can't rely on a Mario Kart game. So
yeah, I think Nintendo is pretty determined in the fact that Mario Kart Tour was Mario Kart 9.
Right.
And it's treated that way also with the Booster Course Pass. Yeah. Like we see Tour being added as an canon entry.
Yeah.
So I think the plan is to just call it Mario Kart Cross. So Mario Kart 10, Mario Kart Cross, and then a crossover with other franchises.
I love that.
Like turning it into Smash Cut.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Alright, enough speculation about games that are beyond us. We have some third-party games also confirmed for Nintendo Switch in 2023, including Hogwarts Legacy, which was delayed from 2022. We have Disney Illusion Island. I know there's another Disney game as well coming to the Nintendo Switch next year. Then we have SpongeBob The Cosmic Shake, which is pretty much the sequel to the Battle of Bikini Bottom, isn't it?
Yep.
And then we have Mega Man Battle Network Collection and Another Crab's Treasure, which is Yeah, a very exciting indie game that we have seen a lot, and well, we love crab games.
I do, yeah. I love a good crab game, and the reason I threw that on the list of things to sort of be on the lookout for is, you know, that game got announced, if you remember, during that indie direct right after Elden Ring, right? There were all these people that were hyped about Elden Ring, looking for their new Souls experience, and when they mentioned that, yeah, we're making this crab Souls-like, and it's got this really cute art style. It's obviously family friendly. It's a good choice for a Nintendo platform. I think that's going to scratch the Souls itch that a lot of people are going to have next year.
All right, I think that leaves us with the so-called known but currently unannounced, or leaked but currently unannounced category. Where we find a certain 1-2 Switch sequel, which has been. Like, the question is, has that game been scrapped?
Bro, I could see them just scrapping it, or I could also see them randomly dropping it in the middle of a direct and just saying, oh, and it's out right now on the eShop, and that's it.
Okay, Metroid Prime Remake, I think we've covered a lot. We know that the game is probably going to be coming out in a shorter time frame even than revealed to release cycle of Fire Emblem Engage. Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD could be late next year, but with the DLC of Tears of the Kingdom, I think more likely 2024. We are about to enter a year that is already stacked and is going to just get more and more packed as we get through each presentation towards the big one, which is going to be the return of E3, hopefully this time physically and also digitally at the same time. Yeah, one more last thing. I think Zelda is going to be present at PAX. It's like end of March, PAX East, of course.
Oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I could see them doing a live demo there.
Anyway, that was the upcoming 2022 Switch games, or if you prefer the lineup of it, since we went through pretty much alphabetical, or not maybe alphabetical, but release order at least. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press the notification bell, as we have far more coming in the, well, what is left of 2022, but all of 2023, which we know is packed with Fire Emblem, of course for us The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, but also Pikmin 3 and many, many other surprises. Once again, Roger, thank you so much for joining me for this overview or actually preview of what awaits us in this long, big next year. Do you have anything else you would like to add? And where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Rogersbase everywhere, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram, and on TikTok as well. Thank you, as always, for having me, Conrad. It's always a pleasure. I'm excited to hear about the rest of your Japan trip when we're done recording this. And the one last thing that I want to say, in terms of, like, an announcement that I expect in 2023 that we didn't really touch on because there wasn't really a place to slot it in. That is Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, whatever, Game Boy anything on NSO. And maybe early next year we'll see the announcement of more systems coming to NSO.
And on that note, we're done. Thank you so much for everyone for watching, and if you want to join our Patreon on patreon.com/commonrealm, and in particular role producer Charles Shesh, and we will see you in future videos on both of our channels.
Bye bye everybody.